Going live. Here we are, boys and girls. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Before You Kill Yourself podcast, episode number 10. Today, well, before I even get into that, remember, call 1-800-SUICIDE if there's someone you need to talk to, if you're thinking about it, if there's someone that you know is thinking about it, if you have thought about it, just give them a call and or call someone. It doesn't have to be them. Call a stranger. Open up the phone book. Have some fun. Open up the phone book. Wait, does anybody have a phone book anymore? Just go through your call someone and just talk. You'd be surprised at, and this is probably horrible advice because you never know what somebody's going to say on the other end of the line. But call 1-800-SUICIDE for sure. And if they're busy, I've had people tell me that they've called and the line's been busy. There are a number of other resources and places that you can call. Hold on. Let me get the list. I have a list, and it is, so you have Suicide Prevention Center, which is 1-877-727-4747. You have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-TALK. You have 1-800-SUICIDE. There's a teen line. All this is listed in the show notes. I always list these phone numbers in the show notes. But there's a Trevor Project, which serves the LGBTQ community, which is 1-866-488-7386. And then you have the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. And then you have the Crisis Text Line. Everybody wants to text today. You can text CONNECT to 741-741. And then you have the Lifeline chat. You have Suicide Prevention Lifeline. .org/chat. So there are plenty of resources, whether you want to talk to somebody or you want to text someone. There's someone out there who is willing to hear and listen and accept and validate and help you process through your emotions and your thoughts. And so please pick up the phone, call someone, and thank you guys. So today, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk today about parents of children who have suicidal ideations, and this is something that, all these podcast episodes are inspired by my, what comes up for me in real life. And recently, I've had a number of parents talk to me about their children who have expressed suicidal ideations or demonstrating some type of suicidal tendencies, and are just feeling at a loss, even though they've been a therapist. And I just want to read you one story that I received from a parent. I just wanted to let you know how much your podcast has touched me. It has been so informative and helpful for me as a parent to a teen who has expressed their desire to end their life and not knowing how to relate and how to help. I feel so helpless and have tried to find therapists for her to talk to, but everyone that I've reached out to has either never gotten back to me or told me that they are no longer taking patients. It is so frustrating. Thank you for taking this subject on and talking about it. Keep doing what you're doing. You are awesome. That I am completely floored by the fact that there are therapists who say, we're not taking any more patients. And obviously that's the case. There are only so many hours in the day. I understand that. But if you're going to do that as a therapist, then say, listen, I can't take you on, but here are the numbers to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other therapists who can. Just don't leave the person out there in the blue. I hope that's not what's happening. It feels like that's what's happening from the letter, but I hope that's not what is taking place. You should definitely, if you can't, like, I'm a personal trainer also. And, if there's a client that I can't take on at a certain time, I'm always I'm like, well, I could refer you to this person. Or if somebody has goals that I feel like I can address, that I'm not best suited for, I go, hey, here's another trainer for you. Or here's another resource for you to find another trainer. There's like, you never just closing the door on people. You're always referring or giving them options. People need to feel like they have options. And so it's sad and disappointing to hear that story from her. And but I'm glad she's finding some solace in my podcast. This is why I keep doing. Well, that's why I do what I do, man. Because it's crazy to me that people are seeking resources. And then I had a parent the other night tell me that they went to therapy with their kid, and they said the therapist just was just kind of sitting there and not really engaged or active, or they didn't feel like it was a meaningful time spent. And not every therapist is suited just because they have a PhD, just because they have a bunch of plaques on the wall and certifications, and I went to Harvard. Just because they have all that, all the accoutrements, I like to say accoutrements, just because they have all of that, they have oak in their office, you know what I'm saying? They have the little timepiece. Just because they have all of those shenanigans, they have a soft couch, nice leather sofa, a little secretary, does not mean that they are qualified to handle your specific situation. Every therapist has their strengths and their weaknesses. And also, you have to find even a therapist who is at the top of their game and incredible and world renowned. You just may not vibe with them or connect with them, or the rapport is just not there for whatever reason. I got these, look at those pillows right there, just a complete disrespect of my background right there. I can't believe this is the background I chose. For podcast listeners, I'm also doing this live on YouTube, and I'm just noticing how I did not set up my background at all. Anyway, so but today, what we're going to get into are the how many ways do we have here? We're going to go. We have a bunch of ways for parents to. So 15 ways for parents to, and this is just accumulated from the different resources that I've looked up, for parents to handle and manage having a child who is expressing suicidal ideations and thoughts. And so let's get into it. And what's today? Podcast. Boom, boom, boom. Well, number one is don't let it snowball. A lot of times I think when our kids, and I don't have kids, but I've worked with kids in group homes and definitely kids who have expressed taking their life. And I've even counseled kids, teenagers who have attempted suicide. And sometimes I can see as a parent, because the kids' emotions are so intense and they want to isolate themselves and shut the door, that we kind of, our response then may be to back off and just give them space. But really, that's when we need to, as Sheryl Sandberg says, lean in. And that doesn't mean get aggressive and invade their space and kick the door open and things like that. But it does mean that we need to sit on the edge of their bed and ask them how they're feeling. And more importantly, if they are feeling sad, if they are feeling melancholy, ask them if they feel comfortable enough talking to you or your other spouse about it. If their answer is no, then you ask them, do they have someone that they do feel comfortable talking about their feelings with? If that answer is no, then we definitely need to find someone, a therapist, school counselor, teacher, someone that they do feel comfortable with, or ask them why they don't feel comfortable talking to you, and really, and whatever their response is, make sure you're not defensive. And because they be like, well, you and mom are just never around, or I try to tell you stuff and you guys blah blah blah. Validate their response, validate their emotions. Say, you know what, I understand why you wouldn't want to talk to me or your mom, or you know, because of such and such. That completely makes sense. What can we do to make you feel more invited? Would writing a letter to us be better? Should we write a letter to you? A little texting back, like any means of communication. It doesn't always have to be verbal. It could be through art. It could be through music. I send you a song, you send me a song. Whatever it is, you're just trying to keep the dialogue going. You're just trying to open the door. Because remember, kids are always communicating. People go, well, my kid doesn't say anything. No, your kid is communicating. They're communicating with their music. They're communicating with their silence. They're communicating with their clothes, with the way they eat, or maybe they stopped eating. Or, their activity levels. Are they going outside or not? So they're always communicating. So never. What do I do? Oh, okay. So don't let their depressive symptoms just snowball, and you step back and do nothing. You talk to them and you find out if they have someone to talk to. And if they don't, if that answer is no, then we have to find someone. We have to present them, at the very least, present them with options. Give them phone numbers that they can call and let them know that they can call it. Call the phone. You know what? Sit down with your kid and call 1-800-SUICIDE with your kid. Call that number with your kid, and a person on the other end of the line will help you um, work that through. The second thing is that we want to do, if we're a parent dealing with a kid who is expressing suicide or has had suicide attempts, listen to them. And we mentioned this already. Listen to what they say. Listen to the emotions in their word. Are they expressing a lot of hopelessness, sadness? Are there a lot of I statements? Are they saying like Pete Davidson was saying, how he doesn't want to be on this earth anymore, or that what's the point of getting out of bed? Are there tones of hopelessness in their voice? Listen to what they're saying, because they're always they're always trying to communicate with you in ways that are subtle, and so we definitely want to be tuned in to the music that they're listening to. Look at their body weight. Are they gaining weight? Because that's a communication, right? If your child is gaining weight, then they are communicating something to you. They are letting you know they're not happy, or they need to feel protected. Or are they losing weight, not eating? Are they communicating peer pressure? Are their friends talking to them about drugs or sex, and trying to push them in a direction that they are uncomfortable with? Is there any type of public shaming taking place? Whether sometimes it comes from the teacher or the coach, right? If there's any public shaming taking place, is there a major loss, like a breakup, or maybe the team lost, or where they feel like it was their fault? They were the kicker or the quarterback, things like that. Did somebody in their school die, or somebody that they looked up to, a celebrity? Was there a celebrity death? So listen to the words and take those things very seriously, because remember, your children are always communicating with you, um, whether it's verbally or non-verbally. And most of communication, as remember, is non-verbal. So you want to listen to those things and take it all seriously. And the key is, when your kid is talking, dig deeper, ask more questions. What does that mean for you? How do you feel about that? Really getting them to process their feelings. How do you feel about that? What else are you feeling? How do your friends feel about that? How are you handling this? What's another way of looking at this? Like getting them to zoom out and expand. And as parents, I think we always feel like, I say we like I have kids, but as parents, but as people always feel like we have to have the answer when somebody presents us with an issue or a problem. And we don't. The only person that has the solution is the person. Now we can help them flush it out and we can help them find it and guide them to it and things of that nature, but we don't have the answer for them. Only that person has it, and only way we can get them to get to the answer is to help them unravel the layers of their emotions and thoughts and ideas, right? So asking those questions, being a little bugaboo. Kids hate it, but you got it. But at the same time, they love it, and on some level they know that you care because you're always there sitting at the end of their bed, right? The third thing is never shrug off threats of suicide as typical teenage melodrama, right? Because a lot of times, if these kids are saying things like, nothing matters, I wonder how many people would come to my funeral. Sometimes I wish I could just go to sleep and never wake up. Everyone would be better off without me. You wouldn't have to worry about me much. You won't have to worry about me much longer. If they're saying things like that, then we have to take those things seriously and explore where that is coming from. Nothing matters. What does that mean? Nothing matters. Your family doesn't matter. The world doesn't matter. So you're just really trying to get to the source of, because we all, I mean, let's admit, like most people have like all or nothing, like, oh, this day sucks, life sucks, blah, blah. We all like spot off those things. But most of us are aware that it's a temporary thing. But when we're talking about children, we're talking about teenagers and especially in middle school and teenage, where everything is just so black and white. It really could feel to them like nothing in the world matters, and it's the end all to be all. And so you have to get them to, and I keep using this word, zoom out and really explore deeply why they feel the way they do, and also help them explore it. Like if your kid's saying to you, "I wonder how many people would come to my funeral," and have them play it out. How many people would come to your funeral? And what would they say? And what would you like them to say? And because what you're doing is you're validating them, and then because I think what happens is if you help them explore their funeral, because let's get this straight. There's nothing wrong with talking about death. I actually think, and a lot of philosophers, Dr. Alan Watts being one of them, and Viktor Frankl, like exploring death and talking about death. Steve Jobs, also, founder of Apple. It can be very liberating and very engaging for you. And I'm not talking about suicide, but to talk about death, to just as a reminder of how impermanent things are, and that there's a timeline on our life here on Earth. That is a good exercise because it creates an urgency of things that need to happen. So, if your kid is saying, how many people will come to my funeral, a good exercise would be to be like, well, what would you want them to say? Like, what would they say? And then what would you want them to say? Because now you're getting them to expand and think about their life and what's important to them and what they value, and reasons for living. If a kid's saying sometimes I wish I could go to sleep and never wake up, like it's like, and what do you think that what will happen after that? Because a lot of times kids just think about the incident itself. Like they go, well, if I fall asleep and never wake up, then that's that. But they don't think about the fact that, your parents, that you're going to walk in and find the body, that they can no longer go to school or go see a movie or find new love. They don't think about all the other things that it also ends. They just think about the pain ending, and they don't think about all the other great things in life that are coming up, that it also ends, and the opportunities that it ends, and the fun times and the love and the hope and the disaster and all. It's like there's something that they want ended. It's not that usually they don't want their life to end. They just want whatever pain is in their life to end. And if you can get to the source of their pain, right? Figure out what their pain is, and then we can really start to dig deeper in there. So don't be afraid of these statements. Go deeper into these statements, explore it more, and you're not going to get it all in one shot, right? Um, Number four, because I understand that what we're asking of you is very hard, but seek professional help right away. Whether it's talk to if you have a pediatrician, talk to your pediatrician because they also have linked to resources. Talk to your school counselor, talk to the teachers, therapists, groups. There's someone that you can talk to that can at least guide you and at the very least make you feel like you're not alone in this journey. And when we talk about professional help, not just for your kids, but also for yourself, you yourself need to process your emotions and thoughts and feelings going forward with this. So, seeking professional help for both of you, but it'd be great if you, as a unit, can go into therapy together. And if it doesn't have to be every month, I understand that in some instances it could be very expensive or costly. Even if you just go once a month, just do something, get something on the calendar, have it regular, just so that you know that it's something at some point that you both can go to help you process whatever is taking place, right? It doesn't have to be every day or every week, but just something to get you going. I go to the dentist. I go to the dentist 6 times or twice a month or a year. Actually, I go every 3 months now. That's because I'm OCD. Um, so go get help and check in. And then there's also a lot of professionals, you can see them once live and then have like a weekly video check-in or a text check-in or what have you, but have something set up that's financially feasible for you. You don't have to find the best doctor, but you do just have to have someone that you feel like is in your corner helping you out. And don't be afraid to talk to your family members because you'll be surprised at how many, who else in your family may be struggling with this and may have been ashamed to talk about it. And then that can be an extra outlet for you. But definitely seek professional help. Share your feelings is a number one. That's number 5. Share your feelings. And not with your kid, obviously, but yeah, with your kid in a way in terms of empathy, right? Because your kid will be expressing sadness and melancholy and despair, and to open up with your child about when you felt like that and how you were able to cope with it, and then saying like, I understand that the way I did it may not be the way you want to do it, but here's how I dealt with it and here's how I coped with it, but I definitely felt the way that you have. And sometimes to this day, and if you can give him a current, I think as parents, a lot of times we look at our children as children. And I think if you look at them as a person, right, as a person, as an individual, you realize in order to establish rapport between two people both have to share their feelings and what they're going through, right? When you think about the people who you go, man, I just feel like I know that person. Well, it's probably because that person shared a lot with you and you shared a lot with that person. That's why you feel connected. But sometimes as parents, we try to isolate our children from our feelings and what we're going through. But children are very perceptive and they can read a lot of it. So if there's things that you think you're walling off or hiding, like I'm sure my mom thought she was hiding a lot of stuff that I was more than aware of, but just never brought out. Your children are really perceptive and they're watching you and they're around you and they notice changes in you and in your dynamic in your marriage and things like that. And they may not say anything, but they're definitely picking it up on some type of uh, subconscious, if not conscious level. So share your feelings of sadness. Of it doesn't have to be about suicide. If you've never experienced suicide, you don't have to say, you don't have to relate in that way. But because 9 times out of 10, your kid will be talking to you about not necessarily suicide, but going through loss or a breakup or being bullied in school or being shamed and just common things that we've all have experienced on some level or not. And so to relate and connect with your kid on that level. Number 6, encourage your teen not to isolate themselves from family and friends, because a lot of teenagers will close the door and they'll try to sleep their life away. And you don't want to force them into social situations, but you do want to encourage and prevent and present opportunities for them to be social, to be around friends, to not isolate, but also encourage them to really open up about what they're feeling. If your kid is journaling and there are it's aggressive and they're just kind of stabbing at the pages, to maybe encourage them to talk to their friends about it or talk to someone. But because a lot of times, and I've read these stories where a kid who has completed suicide, they were social and they did have friends, but what the kid didn't do was really share their shame or their guilt or their feeling of isolation. They were around a lot of people, but never really felt connected for one reason or the other. So they never expressed their quote unquote negative emotions, even with the people they were surrounded by. So you want to encourage that. And you also want to practice that yourself, instead of everything's great, everything's good, which we as a society tend to do. We're not just talking about children. It's also something that as a society, we do. We just act like everything's good and everything's great. And we're afraid to express the nuances of I'm bothered or I'm hurt. I was in the gym this morning and this dude it's a very small gym in a hotel, very small. And this guy was on the phone. And not only was he on the phone talking to his little earbuds, and he's like, yeah, man, so we was out partying, getting our drink on. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's the gym. Nobody wants to hear about you getting drunk and wasted at 8 o'clock in the morning in the gym. We're here to get healthy, get stronger. And you're coming in with this bravado. And there's a huge sign that says no cell phones on in the gym. Do not talk on your cell phones. Don't take pictures. The cell phones aren't even allowed in the gym. Now, I did have my cell phone on me, but it's because I got my timer on there. So, don't be mad at me. And this guy, so finally I just said, I go, excuse me, sir, no cell phones on in the gym. And he looked at me and he goes, is it bothering you? And I was like, and instead of saying yes, because it was bothering me. And I was so angry. I just said, and I just looked at him. I didn't say anything. And he goes, you want me to get off? I was like, no cell. And I repeated, I said, no cell phones allowed in the gym. And then he was like, well, I didn't see the sign. I was like, well, the sign's right over there, sir. And then he got up and he went to go look at the sign. He was like, this guy wants me to get off the phone. And then he got off the phone. It wasn't a big deal. But and I was like, yeah, that's right. That's right, Leo, man of the people. But it was bothering me. And so I had such a hard time confirming what he said. He's like, is it bothering you? And I don't know why. Like if it was something that was great, I was like, are you having a great time? Yeah, I'm having a great time. But if someone's like, is that bothering you? No, it's not bothering me. Like we as a society just don't like to admit that something's bothering us. Like everything's fine and peachy keen. So teaching, showing, demonstrating, that it's okay to talk about those feelings, like being bothered or hurt. Though it's really important, right? Number 7 is exercise. Make sure your kid He doesn't have to be running around, he or she doesn't have to be running around doing burpees. But if they're get outside, man. I can't emphasize just even going for a walk or getting the sun. Group exercise is better. Group exercise outside is the best. And so just getting them moving 20 minutes if they've been in there, if it's the weekend, and usually on the weekends, if the kids depressed, they usually won't go out. But just to make sure first thing in the morning, like first thing in the morning, I go to the gym because I know that's when my willpower is at its highest. First thing in the morning, I'm ready to like, eat the world the first thing in the morning. And then as the day wanes, I'm like, yeah, screw the world. I'm just gonna stay inside. But to get outside, to get up, get going, get moving, it's just an amazing thing. And so just taking them for a walk, if you have a dog, make sure they take the dog out for a walk. Do not let your kids wake up and then just plop down on the couch. Get them up, get them moving. And and you have to encourage them and you go with them. Don't let them see you just sitting around either. Monkey see, monkey do. Number 8, urge your teen not to demand too much of him or herself. I think this is like you hear so many stories about students who were A students and just killing life and just conquering the world. They were top of this, they were captain of this, and et cetera, et cetera. They got accepted into this college, and then they still take their life. And a lot of times it's because they're like, I can't keep up at this rate. Like they're in the back of their head, they're like, there's no way for the rest of my life I can maintain this altitude. I can't maintain this speed. Like a Porsche. A Porsche can't do 180 miles per hour. There, at some point the engine burns out. And I think a lot of kids feel like because they've always been going at 180, that they'll always have to go at 180, and there's no break, and they're just like, man, I'm done. So have them scale back. I think it's the Mormons. Don't quote me on this one, but I believe it's the Mormons that when the kid turns 18, that for 2 years they kick them out of. I don't say kick them out, but they send them out. They basically do kick them out. They send them out into the world, unprotected by the Mormon religion and culture, and tell them to live life out in the secular world for 2 years. And after 2 years, if they want to come back, they can, right? So they've been raising them a certain way. And, if you go to Europe, a lot of students take a gap year from between high school and college, just a year to explore the world and have fun. And it's crazy to me that we as Americans don't do it. And I get it because we're a socialistic society and our everything financially, I think, is more of a financial thing for us than it is in Europe. But, if your kid's been thriving and killing it at life, encourage them to say, hey, if you want to take a year off before you go to college and just see the world and just explore, just to give your kid that window, that breath of fresh air, to let them know they don't have to stay on this treadmill forever. And then see if you even want to go to college. Because here's the thing. I think a lot of parents think they have to get them from high school to college and boom, 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 right? If you have a kid who's killing it in college or at high school, and they're getting straight A's, that's a part of that work ethic is a part of who they are. So whether or not they go to college or not, they're still going to take with them the work ethic that they need to succeed in life. The college degree doesn't guarantee you anything. It doesn't guarantee. There's so many college graduates who are struggling through life, and the ones who you think are thriving are actually just barely getting by because of the bills and whatever else. So to make sure your kid, summer vacation, make sure it's a summer vacation, right? Don't have your kids going nonstop or making them feel like they have to go nonstop forever. You get them from one program to this program. They go from school and to band, and then they take a language and like that's all great on paper, but you're everyone needs a siesta or a break or a gap year or what do they call it in sabbatical, right? Like take a leave of absence, right? Get out of there. So number 8, like I said, is urge your teen not to demand too much of him or herself. Number 9, remind your teen who is undergoing treatment not to expect immediate results. So a lot of people, they go for a couple weeks or a few months and they expect immediate results. It's not going to happen. We're probably looking at years, and the reason is children, especially males, like their frontal lobe cortex, the part that controls thinking, right, and logic, that's not fully developed until you're 25. So until that point, you're running on pretty much your amygdala, which is fight or flight. You're just reacting. It's not until about 25 that you actually start responding to life. So you're definitely not going to get immediate results from treatment because your brain, the thinking logical part of your brain, is still developing and won't be done developing until you're 25. And if you've undergone physical abuse, either through football, boxing, anything that where you've incurred any type of head trauma, or you've been abused as a kid, fights and bullying, or maybe even your parents, then it could take even longer because then your brain's just been kind of sloshing around and they're swelling up, and so taking longer for that type of development. Now you're looking at 30 or 35, right? So treatment's not going to be quick, but you will see improvement. But remember, improvement does not mean better. It just means improvement. And when you do start to feel better, that's when the real work begins. The goal is not to get you to feel better. It's to get you to better. And then we really can get deep into the real treatment of it, right? Number 10, if you keep guns at home, store them safely or remove all firearms. So get those guns out your house, parents. Get those guns out your house. If you have guns in the house, get them out your house. And this is another good reason why you want to know who your children are hanging out with. If they're hanging out with kids who have access to guns, or then you have to find a way to limit that, or at least just be aware of it and talk to the parents and make sure that the kids don't have access to the guns when you're not around, right? So limit access to firearms. All right. So we have 5 more here. You want to minimize conflict in the house. Things that aren't a big deal, don't make them a big deal. We're not trying to micromanage our kids, right? We stay focused on the big picture, which is health and wellness and education, things like that. Number 12, we already talked about that. Know your friends. Number 13, support group. Or number 12 is know your child's friends and parents, get to know them. But that goes back to the guns, and that's the real reason. And you just want to know what kind of energy your kid is surrounding themselves with when you're not around. And that's why it's always good to have, if you can have your friends' kids over to your house, right? Instead of your kids always going over there. If you're like, oh, I don't really like kids over here. No. This gives you a chance to really hear and see and feel what's going on in your friend's social circle and dynamic. So better to have them at your house where you can keep an eye on things, right? 13, go to a support group. And we talked about this earlier. There's, check out National Alliance for Mental Illness. National Alliance for Mental Illness. And they will give you resources for support groups for parents, right? Even YMCAs will have support groups for parents of children struggling with suicidal ideation. or mentioning suicidal ideation. Number 14, do not fall into crisis mode. This is the big one. So I think a lot of times if your kid is expressing thoughts of taking their life, that you as a parent, you go, um, oh, well, we got to do everything we can and throw all our resources at addressing this. And to the detriment of your health, of your life, of your safety, of your security. And as much as we love our kids, the most important thing is that we have to realize is that we can't control everything, and we can't, especially the future, right? So instead of going in a crisis mode, this is an opportunity for you to take better care of yourself. And they're setting an example on how your kid should take care of themselves, right? Remember, it's all about setting an example. So, continue taking care of yourself. Go for walks, eat well, sleep, read a book, hang out at the coffee shop, take a bubble bath, journal. Do not let, your health fall by the wayside, because then you're definitely not going to be in any place to really help your child going through what they're going through. So make sure that you are taking care of yourself on a daily basis. Daily. Have a daily routine. Daily routines are very important. I journal, I exercise, I read, I meditate, I do my self-talk, take a bubble bath. Even when I'm on the road, I got my lavender bubble bath ready to go. So take care of yourself, get some sunlight, eat some vegetables, all those things. Muy importante. Number 14, do not fall into crisis mode. And then last but not least, let go of your sense of control. We cannot control the future. We can do our best. We can show up. But at the very best, we can accept and make peace with the fact that we don't have control over the future, right? But that doesn't mean we don't do our best. So those are the 15 ways that as a parent, you can manage and deal with having a child or children who have suicidal ideations. I hope that was helpful. I hope you got something from that. Like I said, you don't have to do all 15, obviously, but those are just things to be aware of. But none of this trumps you talking to someone and joining a support group and connecting with professionals in your area or online. None of this, you have to take it seriously and just keep that. Listen, at the end, just keep the line of communication open with your children and getting them to express their feelings and emotions. But you also, as a parent, because I think most parents are just, most people aren't really comfortable with sharing all the emotions, but processing your feelings, getting them to reframe how they're looking at the world and zoom out. That's you guys going to get so tired of me saying that. Zoom out, because depression is like, and not to say that everyone who has suicidal ideation are depressed, but for those who are, when you're depressed, you become very self-centered. It becomes all about you and your ego. So you have a very narrow view of the world. So you have to constantly help your child, and especially as a teenager going through depression, they have a very myopic, a very narrow view of the world. So you're constantly helping them think about their community, their family, their country, the planet, the universe, helping them expand and grow and realize there's so much more and a million opportunities for things to happen. To get them out of their black and white and all or nothing type of thinking, right? So please comment. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio. Comment, leave 5 stars. Share it with a friend. Share it with someone. You know, don't be a. There's shame in. I'm surprised at how many people come up to me after a comedy show and tell me that their story about either them expressing having suicide ideations or attempts, or them knowing someone. And so I'm loving the fact that so many people are feeling less shame about it, and there's less of a negative stigma behind it. Um, and so share the podcast with someone who you think could benefit from this, right? Mention it to them. Send them a specific episode if you think that would really be helpful. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, I'm releasing these right now every Monday and Thursday, and I'll see you soon. Talk to you soon. Bye.